Just give me a minute. Start presenting my slides. Hi, is everyone able to see my screen? Shubham, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir, it is visible, sir.
Great. So, my presentation is focusing on dark web. So today we have seen that dark web is becoming a important element where we see any kind of data breach happening, any kind of disruption with you see involvement of dark web. So, and the law enforcement agencies in India have also been on on dark web. uh, we see a lot of drugs, a lot of online crime being perpetrated through dark web. So dark web becomes an important element. And we've also seen law enforcement agencies like FBI going and shutting down dark web forums. So that's the reason dark web plays a very, very important role today. If you look at today, we see large number of criminal activity being perpetrated through dark web, uh, right from the bomb blast which happened to crime that is perpetrating. So dark web is getting used for a lot of illegal activities today. That's why understanding dark web plays a very, very important role. So let's look at how this started. So students at the Stanford uh, sold weed to students at MIT using ARPANET. So in 1990s, without doubt in time, we saw that HTTP and FTP were using. However, the most important dark web development of all happened in 2002 with the release of the Onion router. It was created by none other than the US government, the Navy Research Laboratory, as we trace back their origin to the 1970 ARPANET program. Now, what consists of dark web? We obviously see surface web where you've got social media platforms. We've got dark web where we have got marketplaces like Silk Road, which was shut down, and then you've got deep web where you find a lot of records. So, if what we see on the internet today is only 99% of the is only 1% of the internet, the rest is primarily comprises of dark web and deep web. And while you can access dark web, it's important you use secure browsing links such as Tor to access scroll dark web. Otherwise, you will end up losing your location or giving your IP addresses to a hacktivist who might then compromise your identity. So dark web is part of the web that you cannot see using regular browser. However, using the Tor relay link, you can access dark web. That's something which is there. Now, dark web is primarily used for selling a lot of data, uh, also selling a lot of uh, you know counterfeit information, fake passports to fake IDs to confidential information is where dark web plays an important role. So I think that's one of the key things which is there. Hence, understanding how dark web operates or monitoring dark web becomes one of the key parameters for law enforcement agencies today. Now, how do you conceal the real IP? You make encrypted links so that the endpoints are encrypted. Uh, when we note of the term privacy, we see it allows you to have anonymity. So when you use VPN and proxy server, it will ask you to mask the outside traffic, and outsiders cannot observe where the traffic is originating from. Uh, Hence, that's where the dark web plays a very, very important role. And yeah, I think there's a question by Kamal Joshi. Yeah, Kamal, you want to ask a question? Shom, can we allow the people to ask questions or at the end of
Sure,
the
sir.
session?
Sure, sir. Sure, sir.
Yeah, Kamal, you want to ask a question? Okay. Now, a lot of times both privacy and anonymity, you know, become a hurdle when you're doing law enforcement investigation. But another key element we are seeing is that apart from using dark web, the threat actors also use Telegram because a lot of Telegram channels are being used to sell companies confidential data or create links on dark web and then exchanges information through Telegram channels. So that's something which we are noticing right now. Now, transactions, we see escrow, which means the marketplace that hold the money, and vendor today typically uh, receive the order through various cryptocurrencies. You know, FE means finalize early. Now, these are some of the key terms which we see on dark web. 50% FE, half FE, like 50% or so these are like the terms which are typically used in transactions on dark web. Now, which are now these are various marketplaces where you see a lot of illegal activity which is happening. A lot of these are also monitored by law enforcement agencies and takedowns happen. Now, this is one Silk Road based marketplace of which I put a screenshot. Many of them got shut down as well. Now, you see, this is the Silk Road marketplace, and we are talking about using a cryptocurrency here. So, yeah, that's there. This is another conversation on Silk Road. So this is the kind of activity which happens. Now, how do you maintain anonymity? You try to hide your IP address uh, using the Tor browser, and then you try to access it. That's the way. And you close your webcam from the laptop you're trying to access because you don't know if someone's compromised your laptop and is trying to monitor your activity. The search engines on dark web include Gram search engine, like you've got Bing or Google, you've got Gram search engine. Then you've got platforms like IceRocket, Surface, Anonymous Hacking, Virtual Library, Deep Web Research Tools, Stumpedia, Freebase, Tor Onion Routing. So this is what the Tor is in a nutshell. Like it allows you to access dark web, primarily encrypt your network traffic, and then take things forward. And then it decrypts the node. So you enter through one node and then it decrypts the node, which allows you to exit. Sending the document. So it uses the pretty good privacy, which is a common encryption technology for sending the document, for encrypting the document, encrypting the file, decrypting the document, messaging, delivering the message. This is how it works. So, for example, if Alice is sending a message to Bob, then it goes to something called as node 1, onion node 2, and then it redirects. So that's why it's difficult to find out where things are moving. So this is the first hop. This is the last hop. The keys are then shared. The data exchange happens and Bob is able to access. So if you look at it, it is called onion routing because the original key distribution data structure, you have just layers of public key crypto and nothing in the center, just the layers which are typically used. So this is how the onion service protocol works. Tor makes it possible for users to hide their location while offering various kinds of services such as web publishing, instant message servicing, using Tor rendezvous points, or using Tor users can connect to other services formerly known as hidden services, each without knowing the other's identity. Now, the step 2 is the Onion service assembles an Onion service descriptor containing its public key and a summary of each introduction part and signs this description with a private key. It uploads the descriptor to a distributed hash table. The descriptor will be found by client requesting onion where XYZ is there, 16 character derived from the service public key. After this, the onion step is set up. This is how it gets set up. A client that wants to contact an onion service needs to learn about its onion address first. After this, the client can initiate connecting establishment by downloading descriptor from distributed hash tables. Here, And then you would see that Tor service would have its own cloud through which you would see, the circuit being set up and the public key, how it gets, shared, and the one-time secret key which is created, and the rendezvous points. Now, the step 5 here is where the onion service decrypts and the clients introduce message and finds the address of the rendezvous point and the one-time secret in it, right? So this is the decryption method which is typically used for transmitting data. The last step is it notifies the client about the successful connection establishment, and both the client and the service onion can use the circuits points for communicating with each other. Now, what is Tor? Tor is a free open network. It mitigates tracking and surveillance. It was started by the US not-for-profit. Uh, Today, it's a not-for-profit. So, government and mass target agencies, uh, typically who do surveillance, it can safeguard you from surveillance. The business model is again using internet and bypassing surveillance. So, why do you need Tor? You need Tor for remaining anonymous, advocate, adversaries mitigation, and the Tor uh, helps you stay safe when you're trying to access dark web. It is similar to like a VPN or a proxy, a network of relays. Who can see your activity without Tor? See, this is how it works. This example will show you. So this is basically, if you look at Tor, it is little t Tor plus patch Firefox. So basically, the Firefox browser had created Tor. So this is an advanced version of Firefox, which allows anyone snooping who can't see the websites. Websites can't be tracked, prevents privacy violations like fingerprinting, third-party cookies, right? No browser history, cross-platform, Windows, Mac, Linux, Android. That's how it works. So this is in a nutshell with respect to Tor. So ideally, you should try and work, hands-on. Just use the Tor browser. So this is how you set up Tor. You go to HTTPS Tor project. You download the browser. Select the language in which you want to download. Then the safest way to download is using the HTTPS link or email. This is how you set up running Tor for the first time. Updating the Tor browser, uninstalling the Tor, moving forward, default. This is how it works. Troubleshooting Tor. This is how you set it up. Setting up the censorship mitigation options, access to Tor logs, security slider. The Tor plays a very important role when you're trying to access the dark web. So it is not advisable to change the setting in the options menu. For example, if you add sites to whitelist, that can result in fingerprinting. So instead, you should only allow temporary trust blocked objects. Now, DuckDuckGo is a default search engine in Tor browser. Using Tor prevents DuckDuckGo from tracking users, even if they are watched. That's typically there. And then do not allow any kind of plugins. So don't enable Flash plugin, Java plugin. To prevent JavaScript's vulnerability, use a safe setting in the security slider. Then you also have the mobile Tor. The mobile Tor design of the mobile Tor is to make full privacy impossible. Mobile Tor is the best for prevention, can provide better privacy for some threat models. We we are making it better for time and default mobile devices, which they say to be coming out soon. Now you also have Tor browser, which could be for Android, the Onion browser to find for iOS. That's how you will find Tor again. Orbot is another platform that you could use. You can choose the location. How do I get help using Tor? So these are some of the links which are there. This is how you find a bug. If you find a bug, then this is you can reach out to get it fixed. What do you do? So circumventing censorship with Tor, what you can do when Tor is blocked, you can download Tor browser. It won't get connected. It takes a bit of time. When this website gets blocked, there are other ways through which you can, get a flash drive, get the exe, bridges and pluggable and transport. So obviously, Tor plays a very, very important role when you're trying to access the dark web. These are the plugins. Now sharing content anonymously with Tor, onion services. The regular internet allows adversaries to see what you're sharing, but when you're using Dropbox, etc., downloading from email through your browser, you need to exercise certain safety. So Tor devises a sneaky way to hide both file data and the related metadata is what it enables. So onion services for both protection of your user and server use learns about client service meetup end-to-end encryption without HTTPS connections never go out on vanilla internet. You have secure, private, anonymous file sharing mechanisms. You use Onion services secure send files, create Onion services where files can be downloaded, no need for third parties. Onion Share connects, allows stores, add share. These are some of the links. How you could copy link, send it to contact, install Tor browser when they finish downloading. So this is with respect to Tor. Now let's look at something called as the tail OS. Yeah, you have questions, please ask. I see a question.
Correct, Kanish. Sorry to interrupt you. I was just asking about Tails OS and what are the basic tools. Is it really necessary to use VPN while using the Tor browser, or what is the safest way to install Tails OS? How to burn the disk, kind of things that I want to ask, but I thought you are trying to explain that. Sorry to interrupt you again.
No, so anyone who's trying to access the dark web, please don't use the regular browser because then there is a high probability your system will get hijacked. Very high probability your system
Uh,
will get hacked.
yeah.
So it is always
Uh,
recommended that you use a laptop where the camera is locked.
yep.
And the other thing which is typically there is that your browser is a Tor browser that you are using to remain because
Yep.
otherwise people will be able to see your activity. So it is very, very important that you access or browser for accessing a dark web if you're trying to set up.
Yep. Some more thing, some more concept that I want to know that like what is Tor relay and how to configure Tor bridge kind of things that I want to ask just for the
Yes.
students.
So basically, Tor relay allows you to have encryption. When you're trying to move traffic, the traffic doesn't move directly from one organization, one place to other place. So from A to B, it like if I go on my earlier slides, it typically moves through a relay link, which allows anonymity to happen. Right? And then the encryption method, which is set up, it is in a way that the key is only shared between the sender and the receiver, and it is, transferred in a manner that the data can be, first it could be encrypted, then it moves through the Tor wire, and then it can be decrypted at the end node. Only the sender and the receiver are able to share the key. So this is basically a private key, which is there. Let me see if I can stop sharing my screen and just go back on the last slide where we were discussing this. Allow me a minute. So if you look at this slide, Shubham, you would see that if the onion service protocol would allow Alice to send message to Bob, where the onion service assembles an onion descriptor containing its public key and summary to encryption, signs the descriptor with a private key, and it uploads the
I,
descriptor to a distributed hash table. Right. So this is
sorry,
this is
Kanishk,
how it.
your screen is not visible to anyone.
Okay, just give me a minute. Are you able to see my screen now?
Yeah, right now.
Great. So if you look at this, uh, this is your step one, which allows Tor to set up a rendezvous point. So Tor users can connect with each other through something called as hidden service, each without knowing their identity. Where Alice, if they wants to, Alice wants to send a
Can you please unmute
You have
yourself?
been muted with yourself.
Uh, Kanish, please can you unmute yourself?
someone had muted me.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, just give me a minute. I'm going back to my screen. So, so the rendezvous points allows the Tor users to connect with each other. Uh, if Alice is the first sender and Bob is the receiver, then Bob picks up something called as an introduction point and builds a circuits, uh, something called as the Tor circuit within the Tor cloud. And Alice creates something called as the introduction point through which Alice wants to send the message. And then there is a public key and a private key, what we have learned in cryptography. And then you have something as the one-time secret key which gets created. So step one is the rendezvous points allows the Tor uh, users to connect with each other. Let's move to the next step. The second step is the onion service assembles an onion service descriptor.
So you are on mute once again. Really sorry.
Yeah, just give me a minute going back. Are you able to hear me now?
Kanishk.
Yes. So now in step two, the onion service assembles an onion service descriptor containing the public key and a summary of the each introduction part and signs in the descriptor with a private key. So it uploads the descriptor with a something called as a distributed hash table. The descriptor will be found by two clients, XYZ onion, where XYZ is a 16-digit character name derived from service public key. After this, the onion service gets set up here. Uh, Now, right now, what happens? Let's look at this. So, if a client wants to contact an onion service needs to learn about its onion address first, the client can initiate connection establishment by downloading the descriptor from the distributed hash table. If there's a descriptor from the onion, it could be a typo. The client knows that set of introduction points and the right public key is created at that point of time. And then the circuit is established and using the randomly picked relay, the rendezvous points gets created by sharing the one-time secret key. So basically this is the one-time secret key, which is the private key which is used for connecting the sender and the receiver. The step 4 is when the descriptor is present and the rendezvous point is ready, the client assembles an introduction message, including the address of the rendezvous point and one-time secret key. Now, through this, you see two people being able to communicate. So this is basically cryptography, which is used. You use the public key and use the private key here. Again, the Tor takes place, communication takes place via Tor circuit where nobody knows, uh, the who's the sender and who's the receiver. So they remain anonymous in this. Step 5 is that the decryption of the client's message happens. What Alice is sending to Bob, Bob is able to decrypt it, and have a circuit set up. At this point of time, the you're able to pass on the message secretly without revealing the details of the sender. In the step 6, the successful connection, once it is established, the circuits can be used for communicating with each other anonymously. So this is basically end-to-end encryption, right? Where you don't know the sender and the receiver also doesn't know, but they are able to communicate in a secure manner. I hope I'm able to explain how the Tor browser works. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask now. Any questions anyone has before I move forward?
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, sir. Is it possible to get the real origin even if the person is using VPN and proxy?
Yes, it is possible to get the origination of the person if even the person is using VPN proxy or a tar. A lot of times people send you links or encrypted files in which there could be a command and control server which is sitting, uh, a rootkit which is established, and a lot of times people end up moving away from the Tor browser to browsers like Chrome, which reveal the location of the person, right? So that is possible. Secondly, as per the new IT rules, the VPN service providers are required to share the location of the person who's working when asked by law enforcement agencies, like in case of the bomb hoax, which in Delhi police reached out to the VPN service provider and they were able to point it out to a child in Delhi. So as per the new IT rules which have come in, the certain guidelines, the VPN service providers are required to log the information of all people up to 5 years. And then if law enforcement agencies ask, they are supposed to produce this information. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, but still there are people like unethical hackers or those that are hiding from the authorities. How is it that possible when everything is being regulated by VPNs and all?
So see, it is only cases related to national security where government would take such steps. It's not that uh, they are just going after everybody. Like even in the type of the crime which is happening, it is basis that only the organizations decide if they want to ask this kind of information. So it's not that they remain completely anonymous. There are still possibilities that these people can be tracked. So there is nothing called as 100% anonymity. If law enforcement agencies want to ask this information, they can still get all of this information. That's the possibility. That's why the rules are there. That's how things are happening right now. Any other
Okay.
questions anyone has?
And how does AI affect this anonymity thing? Is there any effect on the VPN and proxy things as the AI is developing? Because
Yeah,
AI
so I
is
think,
impacting on all the fields. So what is the impact on this dark web thing?
see, in terms of reading data records for looking at anomaly or when the logs are shared by VPN service provider, AI can only enable this analysis to be done in a quicker manner. Like it is not like a AI is not like a magic key right now. It is still developing at this stage. So if you understand, this is still work in progress. Are you able to understand any further question you have?
No, that's all from my side.
Yes, sir. One more question, sir. As you said, sir, to use Tor, it is said it is not legal in India to use directly. So if someone is want to practice at a all in dark
So,
web, how to use it?
accessing Tor browser or using Tor browser is not illegal in India. Neither is accessing dark web. But any kind of activity which is against the Indian laws is considered illegal. Accessing dark web or accessing Tor is not illegal.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions anyone has before I move forward?
There is one more question from my side. Uh, what are the difference between the uh, Tor network or the IP jumper concept? Is it the same, or are they using the same concept? Are they using the same technique? Can you differentiate both of them? What is IP jumper and what are the Tor or basically dark web kind of network using that they are?
Okay. Have you used any one of them so far?
Yeah, I used to use some GitHub repository which I was using in Kali Linux.
Mhm. Okay.
I have right now I don't have name for that particular repository, but I have used that. They have changed
So
the
basically,
IP
an
address
IP
with
jumper,
okay.
yeah. So
Yeah.
IP jumper is it allows you to bypass geolocation restrictions, right? It allows switching between IP addresses, often through proxy or a VPN, right? So it avoids the detection where, if someone's doing web scraping, SEO, or accessing banned platforms, then the tracing the IP addresses becomes very difficult in case of the IP jumper, right? Uh, for example, streamlining of certain services are restricted. Like you want to watch IPL, then the IP jumper will allow it because in certain parts of the world it might be allowed. Now, look at what is the difference. The Tor allows anonymity and privacy of the prime use, whereas the IP jumper only masks and does the rotation. Uh, if you look at Tor, it uses onion routing technique, whereas the IP jumper uses proxies and VPNs. Then, in terms of encryption, if you look at the Tor, the way it is set up, it is primarily multi-layer encryption, whereas the IP jumper is typically a single encryption depending on the VPN service provider. That's how typically this works. So the other thing is that the IP jumper you will find it operates in a faster manner. However, the speed of the Tor is relatively slow. Now, in terms of anonymity, Tor would give you the maximum level of anonymity. So somebody will be able to trace you using Tor. The possibilities are still there, but very minimal. However, IP jumper can be bypassed. Okay. Now, typically IP jumper is used for accessing the surface web, whereas Tor is typically used for accessing the dark web as well. Okay. And the complexity of the Tor browser is much more than a IP jumper. Okay. Now, one of the key features is that the Tor uses the onion routing, where the data is encrypted and uh, the routed mechanism is also encrypted, where each of the layers need to be peeled. That's why it is called the onion link. The anonymity allows the IP address to be anonymous and very difficult to trace the route. So a lot of times VPN would allow share information with the law enforcement. The Tor doesn't allow sharing this information, right? So it focuses on ensuring that the browser habits, the location, the metadata is not shared by the ISPs or surveillance. Hence, it is used typically for secure communication. The second is, obviously it is much more secure. However, the IP jumper, like I mentioned, it still has limitations compared to Tor. That IP may get traced if the service provider, the VPN service provider, keeps the logs and the law enforcement agencies asks for this log. Okay, if I were you and I have to access internet for doing something which is critical, I would prefer using the Tor than the IP jumper. Any other questions? Can you guys hear me? Any other questions anyone has?
No, Kanish, you can proceed.
Okay. So I'm moving forward. You're able to see the screen, right?
So can we get the
Yes, sir.
PPT?
Can you see the screen? Shubham?
Yes, sir, we
So
can
I'm
see.
on,
Yeah, Kanish.
you can see the screen, right? Bridges and pluggable transports.
Yep.
So now bridges are relays that are not listed publicly, but these bridges allow you to directly work on the Tor browser. So you can build bridges, send an email, enable it. This is some of the additional plugins which are there, right? So if you go on the Tor browser, you would see configure, and you can have some of these bridges and pluggables connected. So this says that request a bridge, right? The MOT method, and then select to build a bridge. The pluggable transport include making a Tor traffic look random, work in multiple situation. Then you have the Meek Azure to make it looks like Microsoft traffic works from another country. Then you can use something like Snowflake for temporary projects. This is there. And then you have the open observatory of network interference. And then you have the country level reports for specific censorship tools. So these are these other things which are available. Now sharing content anonymously using Tor. So what are onion services, right? Like I explained how this works. The onion services would allow protection between the user and the server. User learns about the onion, the client service requirement, end-to-end encryption with HTTPS. And it would typically how the vanilla services will allow the connections to go out. This doesn't allow the connections to go out. So you have secure private anonymous file sharing. Use onion services to secure send files. Right? This is how typically the onion share would work. It will allow the connectivity to be built up. And once the file is there, then you can click to start sharing files. But mind you, I think I would strongly recommend that you use a different laptop because a lot of times the files which are shared, they could also have, hidden Trojans, command and control servers which are there. Now, moving to Tails OS. So a Tails OS can be set up. So normally when I'm trying to access dark web or anything or set up Tor, I typically would recommend using the Tails OS because it would allow anonymity and to circumvent censorship. Right? It allows you to work in a state of privacy. So it's based on something called as the Debian OS. It contains utilities useful for, supporting information. Right? That's something which is the Tails OS. So it uses the I2P sharing, which is another secure sharing which is used today. And then you have, various mechanisms which are created in Tor. So you can have HTTPS encryption, firewall, confinement, which is there. The Tails has weakness that Tail doesn't protect you against compromised hardware. So if you're using any kind of hardware which is not safe, then Tails can be compromised. Tail can also be compromised if installed or plugged in into untrusted systems. Like you install runs Tails from a computer with its own OS. That's why Tails OS is mentioned because it has its own operating system. Now, if you have your BIOS which is corrupted, the Tails will not be able to safeguard. Tor a Tor exit node leaves communication right in the Tor relay, which allows destination to be connected to server, so it is not encrypted. So eavesdropping, where somebody sends you a malicious file and you download it, then also Tor can't, the Tails OS can't save you. Man in the middle attack, when you exit the node and the server is encrypted, it allows hackers to perform man in the middle. There also it can't safeguard you, but it is better safe than some of the other platforms which are there today. The the Tails OS doesn't decrypt the documents, and only, it allows a secure communication mechanism to be set up. Now, these are some of the key things which is there. So typically, if you want to access dark web, uh, I would recommend using the Tails operating system and then configuring a Tor on top of it. A lot of people use Kali-based Linux or other operating system, but a Tailspin OS is the best way to take this forward. These are the prerequisites for setting up the Tails OS: 2 GB RAM, a 64-bit compatible processor, downloading the OS files. Now, using Tails OS, this is how you can work. Set up the Tor in a Tails OS. So Tor is secure by design, like it allows relays to happen. So now Unix consists of two parts. The former runs the Tor process and it acts as a gateway, and the workstations which are set up. Now these are the features. So disguising the IP addresses, prevent IP spying, prevent websites from being identified, circumventing censorship. It allows encrypting files. So if you look at, you have both public key and private key mechanisms being used. The VP and softwares being set up. You use your own protocol called the Internet Key Exchange Protocol here. And then use its asymmetric encryption with SSL and TLS, which makes it more secure. Now, VPN, I've explained, you have virtual VPNs, you have private VPNs. So VPN again is okay, it allows you to safeguard your location, but it is today, as per the IT rules, the VPN service provider can share this information with police and other law enforcement agencies. This is the general routing encapsulation technique. So in encapsulation, you would see general routing techniques provide a standard for tunneling, which is there. Right? This is how this works. Again, you can set up relays here. I would strongly recommend Onion services Tor to be used in place of others like VPN. Again, a combination could be a VPN plus a Tor browser, which allows double level of encryption and anonymity. So you set up a VPN, then you access the Tor browser. Avoiding the risk on dark web, escrow accounts. If someone's sending you a file, checking that file before downloading it, keeping it in a separate folder location, and having a separate machine for accessing internet. These are some of the key considerations which are there. Example of Onion site is, this is a typical Onion site, deep DOP web. You see it looks very similar to other websites, but this is one of the key things which is there. Now, the dangers of dark web, the online scams are there. Certain people will ask you for certain information, might ask you to share credit, debit card, but you should never share your credit card or true personal information. Remain anonymous on the dark web. Because if your identity gets compromised, then you could typically be targeted for using, any kind of hacking activity or illegal activity using your system. Now, transacting on the dark web, you would require cryptocurrencies. The ways to this best is Bitcoin. There are other cryptocurrencies as well. So one is mining cryptocurrencies and then usually performed through third-party applications. Right. So that's typically which are on transacting dark web. And then secure transaction methods are, the main cryptocurrencies typically using Bitcoin. The like I explained, the terminologies of finalize early, the escrow, multiple signature escrows, secure transaction methods, which are typically used. Do's and don't do's before you make a purchase on dark web. Remember the market site first. Make sure it is not a scam. Never use your debit or credit card. Never use PayPal. Purchase some Bitcoin from a legit seller who offer escrow or mine a Bitcoin for yourself. Another common use of dark web is browsing is searching for content that either costs money or surface web that would require. So exercise common sense while accessing dark web. Don't be too friendly. Don't share your information. Don't get socially engineered. And use Tor browser along with VPN to access dark web. And typically, I would recommend using Tailspin OS, which you can download through a pen drive, which allows you to have privacy and anonymity. Now, these are some of the dark web searches. DuckDuckGo, these are browsers. This is the Tor link. Multiple anonymous, these are services which are available. Then forum sites on dark web include Anonymous Forum, Pedo Support Community, Glazy, 8chan, HidChan. That's how typically we work on the dark web. Any question anyone has before I move forward? Any questions anyone has?
Sir,
Yeah, anyone has any questions?
sir, can we get these resources?
Yeah. I can leave the present. I can send the presentation out to you guys. That should not be a problem.
Thank you, sir.
Great. So last part of my presentation is cryptocurrencies, because cryptocurrencies are the ones which are used for accessing dark web. Before I move to cryptocurrencies, anyone has any questions? Feel free to ask right now.
Sir, what is the possibility that in these cryptocurrencies can be tracked back to us? Is there any condition or somehow they can hack?
When you download files which are sent by anonymous people, there is a possibility those files could contain malicious software which will allow a command and control server to be established, right? So just be careful in terms of what you are receiving. You're not going on links which take you to other browser. That is something which is the key right now. So because you don't know who's there on the other side.
Yes.
Okay. Now, any other questions anyone has? Okay, let's move forward to cryptocurrencies, which is the last part of my presentation today. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. So cryptocurrencies, again, is one of the key components on dark web because the transactions happen through cryptocurrencies. The main features of cryptocurrencies are that it's a digital asset, right? It allows secure transactions, and it can be used as an alternate to fiat currencies, which is your INR, pound, GBP, USD, and it works on the principle of blockchain. So a cryptocurrency typically uses the hash functions and the digital signature. Any input that we provide, be it string, number, float number, anything, can be used here, and then we fixed have the output in terms of 128-bit hash outcome or even 256-bit interrupt. It hides data within it. Like this is the input, the hash function, and the output hash is created. Now it uses something called as, if someone wants to send, it uses digital signature. This is the second building block for cryptocurrencies and digital anonymous systems, where when you're trying to send the message, there's the digital signature will allow uh, the hash function to be applied, and then when the private key is shared to decrypt, encrypt and decrypt the message, this is the digital signature would allow the payment to happen. So this is the second part typically which is used. Well, let's look at this diagram, a document being signed, a hash function getting created, a hash document being created, and then you have the private key for encrypting it, and then the digital signature being applied. So it allows basically a handshake to happen between the sender and the receiver. Now, the cryptocurrencies typically work on a P2P network sharing application and has a blockchain-based system where private key cryptography and blockchain-based programs are used. So P2P network helps in maintaining consistent copy of the distributed ledger. The blockchain uses private key cryptography for secure hash functions that make it immutable. Uh, Program that is uses blockchain as per protocol to execute safe commands. Now, this is how the blockchain would work. If someone wants to send a message, the requested transaction is broadcasted to P2P network consisting of computer validation, the block, and the transaction getting completed. So these are some of the features: secure, global reach, automated operation, open source, distributed, flexible. This is the structure of the blockchain. Linking of the binary trees happen here. If the header, the sender. So if you look at, this is how the block works. You have the version number, the nuance, the previous block hash, the timestamp, the Merkle, and the transaction ID. The header is the block that contains the version of the information. The Merkle is the block that has the hash built, and the transaction ID is that represents the transaction themselves. The block is created with all these details and it gets added to the blockchain, known, as part of the binary hash tree. So it's a data structure used for summarizing, verifying the integrity of the large data sets. Header contains the info, previous block ID. Merkle contains the hash built from the transaction identifier and the list of records. Now structuring the block, you've got the size, the field, and the description, which is there. Now this is how the representing block structure looks like. You've got blocks which are added, and you have the Merkle route and the block and the Merkle tree which gets created. I think you would have studied this in data structures. Typically, blockchains are public, private, and consortium blockchains. A public blockchain have a ledger which is visible to everyone on the internet, and anyone can verify and add a block. Private is the second type of blockchain where private blockchain or permissions are kept central in an organization, and private blockchain allows only specific people in the organization to verify every block on the internet. Some of them in the example is multi-chain block stack. The consortium is the third and the most popular type of blockchain, which is a consortium. It is controlled by a consortium of members. These members are from top companies who came forward for specific purpose. For example, Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan have created some of their own blockchains today, right? That's typically we look at. So predefined set of nodes are created, right? You have a Ripple node, R3, Hyperledger. So a lot of times in secure banking or even stock market, you see consortium-based blockchains being used. Then you have permissionless blockchains. Since the network is open, it is called permissionless blockchain because anybody can participate and contribute to the consensus. The consensus varies on the nodes participating and blockchain mining. And then you have permission blockchain where it restricts the actors who can contribute to the consequences of the state and provide role-based access to blockchain for actors. Now, for Tor, it is recommended use Tor browser. Don't torrent over Tor. So don't use torrents. Don't enable third-party plugins. Use HTTPS. I would recommend using a VPN. Use bridges or find the company. Tor attempts to prevent attackers from learning website, but doesn't prevent from watching your traffic from detecting what you're doing typically. So it's not 100% safe, but it is one of those secure mechanisms to remain anonymous. You can reduce the risk of Tor if you use your own private internet than using uh, public access internet, and that is something which is there. So ideally, last and but not the least, if you use a Tor bridge relay rather than connecting directly to public Tor network, that's another key mechanism which is there for helping you keep safe. Now, these are some of the evolving marketplaces which are there on dark web. Their admin are scammed by users a lot of time. A lot of time, bitcoins also get stolen. Now, a lot of dark illegal sales happen on dark web using bitcoins. This is how typically, the Tor would get installed to a client in a Debian or Ubuntu Linux easily as well. So you would also use Linux Kali based systems for accessing a dark web using Tor. This is high level architecture of hosting dot. So this is what it is right now. That's all from my end. If anyone has any further questions, feel free to ask. Any questions anyone has right now? If no questions, thank you so much for the opportunity and the time to come and speak with you.
Sir, if you allow, sir, can you please send your social media handle accounts in the chat box so that our audience can follow you if need be.
Sure. If anyone wants to get in touch with me, I'm sharing my email ID. And then I'm also sharing my social media handles with you.
Would be more beneficial.
Just give me a minute. I'm sharing my social media handles also. Any questions anyone has? I'll send the PPT as well. I'll send the PPT as well post the session for you to browse through the PPT and get more details. So this is, I've shared my LinkedIn handle. I'm also sharing my Twitter handle. X, as it called now. Feel free to connect with me. Great. That's all from my end. If
Thank you,
anyone
sir.
has,
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for this incredible session on dark web. Now, all of us at least have some basic nitty-gritty on how to access the dark web and how one needs to be very careful in accessing certain things in the dark web and the strategies that you have put forward, which will help others to explore the unexplored uh, thing of dark web. And with this, sir, we, on behalf of the entire CDAC fraternity and the audience, I thank you very much for being a part of this conclave. And we would definitely would like to have you again and very soon, sir. And sir, thank you, sir. And we wish you also the very best for your endeavors. Thank you, sir.
thank you. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Sir, can you share attendance sheet in the Google form?
Brother, it is already shared in the chat box. You please let me pin it. It is already pinned in the chat box. I okay, I will reshare it again.
Sir, attendance should be taken in once a day or many?
Basically, you need to submit your attendance only once a day. If you have already done it, then you don't need to redo it again. Okay. So now is the lunch time. So please come back at 2 p.m. So we will have this session
Excuse me,
on.
sir.
Yeah. Tell me.
Sir, I could not mark my attendance for yesterday, sir.
No issue. No issue. You mark it for today. On based on
Okay,
that,
sir.
will send you the quiz. Okay. No issue.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So see you all at 2 p.m. Huh? Have your lunch.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, sir.